that wanted to build a chapel, a private chapel for himself. And in doing so, rather than having a very small and intimate place, he chose to be in a big rectangular hall for a reason. He wanted to establish a connection, a very important one, a connection that was linking together the Jews, the first Christians, and the Catholics, Rome to Jerusalem. And that's why the Sistine Chapel has the same shapes and dimensions of the Temple of Solomon that was destroyed in Jerusalem in the 1st century AD by the Emperor Titus. Titus was the son of Vespasian, the one that built the Colosseum. Have you ever wondered how he built the Colosseum? With the slaves, the gold and the gems that came from Jerusalem, because his son conquered the city and brought to Rome an incredible amount of those slaves and gems and gold. They were also used to build the Colosseum, at least in part. So the construction of the chapel started in the year 1475, and in just 6 years the chapel was done, was ready. At that point, the Pope wanted someone to come up with beautiful decorations inside, but he had a big problem. It was the 1400s, and nobody could bother coming here working for the Pope because everyone was too busy spending time in another city, the city of Florence. That was the heart of the Renaissance. That was where the Medici family, a wealthy family of bankers, was gathering all the intellectuals of the time and the artists. So the Pope, what did he do? He went to Lorenzo il Magnifico, that at that point was leading the Medici family. Their relationship were not good, but he knew that that was the only way to have someone coming down here to the city of Rome and ask him, look, you have so many artists working for you, so why don't you take a team? You send it down here so they can paint the chapel for me, and then they can come back. And Lorenzo thought about it. He thought, well, maybe I could send even Leonardo da Vinci. After all, he is working for me, so why not? And then he thought, well, yes, maybe not. Maybe he's too extravagant and he has a very eccentric personality. That would kind of clash with the environment here. So I'm telling you this because that explains two things. First thing, why one of the most famous work of Leonardo is not in Florence, not in Rome, but in Milan. Because Leonardo, rather than coming here, moved to Milan first and then he moved to France. And so the last Supper was painted in Milan. That's why. Second thing, that explains why still today we do blame the French and complain for something, right? Yes, for stealing the Mona Lisa. That's what we complain about. That's what we want to have back. That's why we, blame them and complain. It would have been easier if Napoleon actually had stolen it. So we got most of our things back from the time. But since it was Leonardo that took it and kept it with him until he died, ultimately gifted, sold it to the King of France. They were good friends. Leonardo died in France. He never came back here. It belongs to France, actually. So we will keep complaining and we will blame them. They're not going to see it anytime soon. That will not change for now. They are holding on to that very tightly. In return, who did we get instead that came here to Rome? Well, we had a tremendous team of artists that painted the sidewalls. So that was the first phase of the decoration. The sidewalls. Painted curtains, stories of the life of Christ and stories of the life of Moses, so the Old and the New Testament, and portraits of popes. And at the time, the ceiling was a blue sky with stars. Very different, very medieval in a way compared to the beautiful ceiling that you will see today. Now, who were the artists that painted the sidewalls? Well, we had a team that was headed by one man, and this man was Pietro Perugino. Pietro Perugino here that painted the handling of the keys. Was Raphael's master. So when we will walk through the Raphael rooms, you will see how Raphael learned everything from this man. He did something incredible. He gathered a team of artists and he brought down to the city of Rome very famous one. He came here with Sandro Botticelli, for example, here that painted the Punishment of the Rebels. We had Cosimo Rosselli, we had Luca Signorelli, Domenico Ghirlandaio. Yes, you can also come beside if you don't see clearly, come closer. So imagine what kind of mess it could have been to have a very famous artist with their distinctive styles, a bunch of first ladies in one room and working together. It would have been pretty easily a disaster. And that's why he cooled them down, promising a great commission, but also imposing very strict guidelines. It'll be a tremendous opportunity for you, but you have to listen to me. I want you to respect a certain composition. I want you to respect a certain structure. And I want you, all of you, to use the same pigments. And that's something that artists didn't quite like doing. So the beautiful end result that you will see and that you already notice here when I move up and down is the illusion the impression of having one painter taking care of the overall decoration, when in reality we had
It's a
very
team.
different artists with strong personalities. So that was the beautiful thing that Perugino managed to do. As for the stories, it was very common to put the Old Testament with the life of Moses and the New Testament in front of it to help people understand better the full message of the Christian religion. At some point in the first century, when the first Christian community moved here, that was a totally new religion for the Romans. Romans were pagans. They were coming from the Greek tradition. And if we look at the Greek gods, what do we think of them? We don't think that they were very nice, right? I mean, sometimes they look kind of mean, right? Revengeful, resentful, but they also look very human. That was the thing. You can relate to a god that looks so human.
And
that
sexy.
looks like you. And sexy, yes.
Yes.
Also that, for some of them. It was much harder to understand, to have the full picture of the Old and the New Testament, considering that most of the people couldn't even...
Luana,
Non va bene?
a loro dire non sentono bene.
Ah, ok.